Good evening, everybody. So for this topic of discussion, I chose the Scopes monkey trial. It's actually the state of Tennessee versus John Thomas Scopes. So that was in 1927, and the purpose of the trial was the ACLU's retaliation against a series of laws that were being passed in 20 different states, which forbade the teaching of evolution as a scientific theory at the time. Tennessee was one of those states that passed the Butler Act, and the Butler Act reads as follows: prohibiting the teaching of the evolution theory in all the universities, normals, and all other public schools of Tennessee, school funds of the state, and to provide penalties for the violations thereof. Section 1. Be it enacted by the General Assembly of the State of Tennessee that it shall be unlawful for any teacher in any of the universities, normals, and all other public schools of the state which are supported in whole or in part by the public schools funds of the state to teach any theory that promotes evolution, or at least the understanding of evolution at the time, that we came from something akin to apes. It didn't forbid the teaching of evolution with regard to any other animal species having evolved through the evolutionary cycle, but it did forbid teaching that humans evolved from some sort of evolutionary cycle. So what the ACLU did is they reached out to all these states and said, hey, would someone be willing to be a test subject and purposely violate these laws so that we can challenge it in court and eventually get to the Supreme Court and have this overthrown on First Amendment constitutional grounds? So a group in Tennessee came together and they found a willing teacher who wasn't even a biology teacher, but he taught chemistry and physics and a few other sciences, natural sciences. And that gentleman was John Thomas Scopes. He was a young teacher too at the time. He was only teaching for about a year until this happened. And he was used as the guinea pig, one, to try and overthrow this law, but also two, to bring publicity to a small town in Tennessee, which they severely needed, and which the trial did bring a lot of publicity to that small area of Tennessee. So after 12 days of trial, he was found guilty and fined $100 for violating the Butler Act. And despite the media hype, the verdict was nothing of an anticlimax, and the quote-unquote monkey trial began to fade into obscurity. And eventually, in a way, both sides kind of won. Nothing bad happened to Scopes other than the fine, and the law wasn't overturned. Eventually, however, about 40 years later, in 1967, all states started repealing similar acts, and Tennessee repealed the Butler Act, allowing for the theory of evolution to be taught as a scientific theory in the schools. I hope this helps understand the Scopes trial in a very broad manner, and I hope everyone has a great day.